Okay, so let's talk about presuppositions. Now, what is a presupposition? It's not quite a belief. It's not something that we believe is absolutely 100% true all the time, because we might be able to find counterexamples to some of what I'm about to teach you. But think of them as attitudes that when we take on, produce predictably excellent results. As a coach, as a hypnotist, these are great attitudes to take on when I'm working with clients. I encourage you to take these on as attitudes and try them. You may find some you really like, some you don't like so much. Try them out in your personal life. Try them out in your professional life. Notice for yourself where they work and serve you. Notice where they're useful in your life first. And then you can worry about the exceptions down the road. When we presuppose something, we're making an assumption that something is true, and then we're building upon that. So for example, if I say, well, by the end of the entire NLP practitioner training, I'm not sure which part of it you will have enjoyed the most. Now, it could have been the live demos that we will be doing with you and you will be doing with one another. It could be the learning of particular NLP processes and how you can apply those processes to create dramatic and rapid change in different areas of your life or in helping others. It could be in the expanded model of how you look at the world and what you believe is possible in your life. I don't know which part you'll enjoy most. That's really up to you to discover for yourself. So you can imagine that. Now realize, what's the first thing that I presupposed? What's the first thing that I built upon? And that was that you're going to complete the NLP practitioner training, that you're going to be here for all those weekends. Okay? So, let's start with presuppositions. The first one, and this is, I believe, one of my favorites, is behind every behavior is a positive intention. Now, what does this mean? Well, in 13 years of working with smokers, I've never met a smoker who was smoking trying to get lung cancer. Okay? In doing thousands of cases with weight loss, I've never met an overweight person eating a donut trying to get diabetes. Okay? And so, if you think about it, if you take the attitude, right, that behind every behavior, even when that behavior is no longer useful, even when it is even destructive, is some positive intention, some universally acceptable positive intention, that really can open your mind to, number one, assessing, is this behavior working or not? And number two, it can really help to tee up dropping that behavior if it's not working and replacing it with something else that could. Now, the reality is, the reason why most people smoke is they believe that smoking is going to give them relief and relaxation. And in truth, the act of smoking, the ritual of taking a break, walking away, doing 10 deep breaths, that does work to give you relaxation, give you relief. The fortunate thing for them is that it doesn't require the cigarettes, nicotine, and tobacco to do it. Why do most people overeat? Because they believe it's going to give them a sense of comfort. Okay? And so this is what we mean by the positive intention behind the behavior. Another classic example is, ask yourself, most of us, if we're honest, have beaten ourselves up about something we've done or said or did. Why did I do that? That was stupid. I shouldn't have done that. Right? And if you ask yourself, what's the positive intention of being hard on yourself, of self-criticism, judgment, condemnation? The positive intention, most people will tell you, is, well, if I'm really hard on myself, then I'll behave better. And if I behave better, then I'll get better results. And if I get better results, then I'll be happier, and then I can relax, and then everything's going to be good. And I'll say, wow, that's interesting. Now, I've got a question. How's that working out for you? Because the reality of it is that most people, when we beat ourselves up, we just feel worse. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's what happens for everybody. And so if the behavior you're using, like beating yourself up, in order to improve your behavior to make you happier, is making you miserable, well then I guess it's not working, is it? And now we've created a pathway, we've opened up an opportunity for you to let go of that old behavior and replace it with something new. Okay? It also takes on the attitude that no one is inherently just a bad person or evil. Next one, there is no failure, only feedback. This is another great one because failure implies judgment. Failure implies it's over, finality. And it implies that we are somehow making a judgment now based on what we're doing, whereas feedback is just simply feedback. It's more of kind of a curious scientist view of the world. Now, what we know from doing behavioral change work for years on end is that when we plug our self-worth into what we're doing and go, this means this about me. If I do it, it'll mean this about me. And if I don't do it and fail, it'll mean this about me. Well, that makes that learning process 1,000,000 times harder. And thank God children don't generally think that way, right? When they're learning how to walk and they're crawling around and then, they finally get up and get some balance and then they flop over like a weeble wobble and they go through the weeble wobble stage and then eventually they kind of prop themselves up with some things and now they're walking around like the drunken sailor and then pretty soon they're top heavy and they're walking around and crashing into things or what have you. Imagine how hard that would be if they said, my God, if I don't get walking perfect the first time, that's going to really mean something about me. Feel how heavy that is to put that on somebody. Call me crazy, but I see this in weight loss all the time, and I just don't think you should, I don't think your self-worth should be dependent upon what you eat for lunch or how quickly you quit smoking or whether your first attempt at something worked out or not. I mean, if you think about it, if doing things perfect was a requirement the first time, we'd all be lying on the ground in diapers, unable to speak. Right? Because we wouldn't be able to walk, wouldn't be able to talk, we wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom. It's the cutest thing in the world to watch my little ones try to get the fork into their mouth the first time when they're just learning how to do that. And they end up putting the spaghetti on the side of their face. That's how we learn. That's how we learn. We learn by trying and doing and getting feedback and learning from that feedback. And the more you apply judgment to it, the more you pass or fail or look at the world that way, the less feedback you really get because it doesn't feel good. And when it doesn't feel good, when looking at what we're doing doesn't feel good, or when we're afraid we're going to get judged or criticized or condemned, people want to avoid that. Wouldn't you? Sure you would. So if we can replace that attitude of judgment with curiosity, which is observation without the judgment, that can be extremely useful in creating a nice feedback loop. And the more feedback we get, the better we learn. Business owners know this. When they stay on top of their numbers and they stay on top of the business, it thrives. And when they don't, they start to have problems. Next presupposition, people work perfectly to produce the results they're getting. A big difference between an NLP coach and a therapist, and there's nothing wrong with therapy, it's just a very different domain, is that an NLP coach, when you come into our office, we never look at you like you're broken, like you're a bird with a broken wing that needs some sort of triage or what have you. We take the attitude that you work perfectly to produce whatever results you're currently getting, which means whatever strategy you're using to produce the results you're getting, it works perfectly to produce that particular result, which means if we then change that strategy, that new strategy will work perfect to produce a new result or a different result. And so we will adjust that strategy until we're getting the results that we actually desire. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Let's go to the next one. The next presupposition, I believe this one can truly save a marriage and any other kind of relationship. And this is the attitude that the meaning of my communication is the response that I get. The meaning of your communication is the response that you get. So what does that really mean? Notice what happens when most people have a disagreement. One person will say one thing, the other person will take it a different way, and then they'll compare notes. And they'll say, well, that's not what I meant. Well, that's what you said. Well, you should know me more than that. You should give me more credit. And pretty soon they're fighting and they're defending themselves. And what happens with the communication? It disintegrates. It turns into a meltdown or a fight. Now, imagine what would happen if you took this on as an attitude that the meat of my communication is however it lands on the person that I'm communicating to. What that causes me to do is it causes me to now put my focus and attention on them, not on me, on them, and noticing how my communication is landing. And if it's not landing exactly the way I want it to, I can instantly adjust my communication real time until I'm getting the response that I want. It puts the onus on me to adjust my communication, and it's much more reality-based. So the me in my communication is not what I said, it's not what was in the email, it's not what should be obvious, it's not what's in the contract, right? It's however it lands on the other person. So be willing to try that on, particularly in your personal relationships, and I think what you'll find is you get phenomenally better results with less effort. And that's, of course, one of the things that NLP is known for helping you to produce and create. The next presupposition is that we have all the resources that we need. Now, we're just going to take this on as an attitude that since we're not broken, since there's nothing fundamentally missing, since none of us have really come from the island of misfit toys, and we didn't come from the factory defective, that we have all the resources internally to produce the results that we want. If another person can do it, we can do it. This doesn't mean that I'm going to go try out to be a linebacker, for the San Francisco 49ers next year, of course. But if we take on the attitude that we have all the resources we need, it keeps us open to the possibility. It keeps us looking for new options and adding more choice, which of course is going to likely increase the chances of us getting the result that we're after. Now, the next presupposition that we've already covered is people respond to their map of reality, not reality itself. This is why two people see the same event and have a very different response. Why? Because we're not responding to reality. We're responding to our own internal, distorted, skewed, twisted version of reality that has an agenda built into it. And it's not a good thing or a bad thing, but when you realize that is how we operate, it allows you to step back and get some perspective. If you know that as you go down the river of your life, that around the next bend it pulls hard to the left, the current of your life, just the way you're wired, pulls hard to the left, and you're just trying to get through, well, then it's nice to know to stay to the right, isn't it? And that's exactly how you can use that. The next presupposition is that to change your response, change your map. And there's lots of ways to do that. You can add more data in to enhance your map. You can change what you're comparing it to. You can enrich your library of internal representations or collages, and you can compare it to different things. You can try laying on a different meaning. Okay? Down the road, you'll learn things like different, what we call perceptual positions, where you can actually imagine stepping into the other person's shoes and be in their body, seeing the world out of their eyes, having had their experiences, and that will also enrich your map and quite often create empathy for the other person. And the final one is choice is better than no choice. The beautiful thing about doing something like neuro-linguistic programming and hypnosis and the other skills and techniques we're going to teach you is that it helps you to add more choice in. Okay? It helps you to add more choice. When you have one option, it's been said that's a problem. When you have two options, now it's a dilemma. And realize this is how a lot of military type and cult-like type influence happens. Are you with us or you're against us? Pick a side, right? But when you have three options or more, now that is the birth of a real choice. And we in NLP believe that the unconscious mind will always make the best choice available to it at the time. And so what we want to do is we want to increase your set of choices that you have to choose from. Why? So that you can make the best decisions for you and for your life.